All content in this video, including but not limited to text, graphics, images, audio, and video, is the property of Toward Health and is protected by international copyright laws. Unauthorized distribution, reproduction, modification, or use of this content without prior written permission from Toward Health is strictly prohibited. For permissions, please contact us at contact@drtro.com.
Okay, we are in our 7th hour of the weight loss mindset, and today I have somebody very special. He actually has come on the podcast before, the Low Carb MD podcast. His name is Thomas Clifford. Kyoshi Thomas Clifford is the founder of Thomas Clifford's Martial Arts in Rockland County. He studied a wide variety of martial arts full-time since 1981. If we did degrees of black belt, he would be insanely high. He doesn't want me to say it, but he's an 8th degree black belt. He's traveled throughout the United States, China, Taiwan, Brazil, England, seeking the finest instructors and training methods. And he's been training in Rockland for how long? In New York for how long, Thomas?
Oh, it's going on 45 years.
45
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
a resident of Rockland. He's a resident of Rockland. His wife, Ursula, who also trains in the same dojo, has 3 children, Karina, Kalissa, and Kirkson. Interesting fact, and I have to say this, he is also a healthcare professional. By the way, his wife is also a healthcare professional. In the middle of COVID, during the lockdown, when other people were running away, he was running to harm's way, and he became a New York State certified EMT and is still an active member of the EMT here in Rockland County. So I'm just delighted to have Kyoshi Thomas Clifford here with us, and he's going to be talking about resiliency. We're going to be talking about mindset. We've been talking about mindset all day, and I'm excited because he's probably taught over 1,000 students, maybe more, and he's seen successes. He's seen the mindset of people who have succeeded. He's seen the mindset of people who have not succeeded, and I'm excited to hear him give his wisdom. And maybe you could just start with your own sort of journey through health, through wellness. You've dedicated your life to what I consider health and wellness. So maybe you could start on how you got started with your journey, and then maybe we can
Sure.
move to the 6 F's.
Sure. I started doing martial arts, I would say seriously or passionately at an early age. I was 10 or 11 when I made my decision that this is what I want to do with my life. It was kind of early and some thought premature, but I ended up fulfilling my my declaration of what it is I wanted to do. For a long time, it was relatively easy. When you're a kid and you don't have a lot of other responsibilities, pursuing your passions are relatively void of the type of obstacles that we face later in life. So it's later when my participation in the martial arts, both as a practitioner and a professional, became difficult. I faced some obstacles, some injuries, some setbacks, challenges. Owning and operating a school comes with its own plethora of problems. And then my general health, we've discussed this in quite a bit of depth. I had no appreciation or understanding of metabolic health until my A1C started creeping up, and my blood pressure and my resting heart rate that was once, hovering between 45 and 50 started to elevate. That sort of shifted my paradigm and my priorities, and it brought about a whole new set of challenges. And I have to say, like, there's not been many times where I really felt like doing the full quit, but there's been a bunch of times where there's been some what I would call or consider a micro quit, where I've thrown in the towel prematurely, kind of gave up on making a breakthrough, where it wouldn't have taken much more to get to the other side. And I think that's what we're going to talk about today, because everyone's been given a tremendous amount of information. And along with that, there's a lot of inherent inspiration. But if we don't have the understanding of what I would call implementation, and then finally integration, where it becomes a lifestyle, what we have is a lot of motivation and a lot of knowledge that we end up not putting to use. So let's look at it from the perspective of, again, I'll use myself as the example of, I watched a lot of people do things in the martial arts that looked extraordinarily appealing and attractive. Skill is the illusion of effortlessness. It's important to kind of underline that and circle it and put an asterisk. Skill is the illusion of effortlessness. When you watch an Olympic level athlete do his or her thing, oftentimes someone will comment and say things like, wow, she did that effortlessly. And I always wonder how the athlete feels about that observation, because I'm quite certain that it was a lot of things. Effortless was not one of them. But skill is the illusion of effortlessness. In the background, before that performance, that peak performance, there's an extraordinary amount of trial and error. So let's call sitting back and observing somebody who seems to be in incredible health and living the life of our dreams. And we look at that, we go, gee whiz, wouldn't that be fun? Right? That's the first F, is wouldn't that be fun? And then we inquire into how it is that they got from where they were to where we want to be. And we take a crack at it. And when we take a crack at it, we very quickly go from thinking it's going to be fun to experiencing temporary failure. And, I think failure is a good thing, because it's an action signal letting us know that, we're perhaps not on the right path. And if we are on the right path, we've perhaps not given it enough time. But we perceive this immediate crash into a wall as we embark upon a new endeavor. And unfortunately, that's where a lot of people give up. Now, the next stage, after I thought it was fun and I experienced failure, if I stick with it and I get emotionally connected to it, meaning it's important to me and I'm emotionally invested, I'm probably going to experience frustration. And that frustration, if I convert to fascination, if I get really interested instead of irritated, if instead of being furious, I get curious, then I'm going to find solutions to my problems. I'm going to refine the strategies. I'm going to go back and take a closer look at the information, and I'm going to get back on the horse. So I thought it was fun. I experienced failure. I'm feeling frustrated. I got fascinated. And now here comes the tough part. I've got to fight. I don't have to fight with anyone other than this phantom on my shoulder telling me that if I give up this one more time, it's not going to be at the end of the world, because I've already given up thousands of times before. Why would it hurt if I just give up one more time? Well, perhaps it's not going to kill me, but I'm much better off fighting through to the goal that I'm after, ultimately, which is not fun, it's fulfillment. I'm really not interested in just having a superficial level of temporary fun, which you could equate, maybe perhaps it's an appropriate metaphor, to a sweet taste in my mouth. Like a life of fulfillment, of health, of fitness, of vitality, of accomplishment and achievement goes far beyond a sweet taste in my mouth. But I thought initially that's what it was that I was seeking, when in fact I was after fulfillment. So again, I'm gonna rewind and look at, there's 6 other videos, there's 6 other presentations, chock full of valuable information and inspiration. When I watched them the first time, odds are I missed a lot of detail. I didn't pay attention to everything. I thought I understood it, but perhaps I didn't. So again, when I embark on my journey, if I experience temporary failure, it doesn't mean that I have to give up. It means that I have to get smart. I have to find a better way. I have to look at the information. I have to reevaluate. I have to go through a process of knowing what it is that I want ultimately. And I can wrap that around what I would consider to be an identity. So I want to start with, who do I want to become? Who is it that I want to become? What would my life look like when I become this other person who I'm not right now? I'm not demonstrating the character traits, the values, the lifestyle of this individual who I'd like to be. So I have to decide who I want to become. And then I have to behave, and I have to believe, and ultimately I will belong in that identity. But I have to decide who it is before I embark upon that endeavor. I have to get a very, very clear picture. So if I was going to break it down into things that are measurable, I think a good place to start are vital signs. Now, I want to know what my respiratory rate is. I want to know what my heart rate is. I want to know my blood pressure. I want to kind of figure out where my oxygen saturation is. I want to know these things. Then I want to get a CBC. I certainly want to get a metabolic panel. And I want to look at these things as report cards, because they're KPIs. They're these key performance indicators that my lifestyle can actually have an effect on. So I want to look at those things through the lens of what you've taught today and what the other presenters have taught today. And I want to see how I can implement strategies to move the needle and get those KPIs closer to the numbers that are going to reflect the identity that I seek. So far, so good. Give me some feedback, Doc. Where are we?
Absolutely. I want to start actually in each one of these steps. I want to go through the type of person that looks like, so the listener can identify where they are in their journey and what
Sure.
they need to do to progress to sort of the next place. So,
Sure.
we've all had that elation of like starting a new, thing, starting a new career, starting jujitsu. I have a patient who just started jujitsu and is ecstatic about it. I have patients who come into our intro to low carb course, on the Toward Health app, and they're excited to get started, or they've been doing low carb and they're excited to start intermittent fasting. So can you discuss sort of that person when they're in the state of fun, And
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
that it's called fun, because it has to be fun. Otherwise, you
Sure.
wouldn't be doing it.
Sure. It again, the part of it that's fun, I find is inordinately fleeting. It's very brief. It's like, you look at a kid sees another kid on a skateboard, and the kid has been on that skateboard's been on that skateboard for 6 months to a year, and the child with skill makes the skateboard look like a lot of fun. Looks like, boy, I want to give that a try. The child stands on that skateboard for the first time, and there's a good chance they're going to wish they had elbow pads and knee pads. It's very likely that they're going to not experience instant success, but they're in fact going to experience immediate failure. And again, it's if we're too fragile and we're too delicate, and I don't mean physically, I mean psychologically and emotionally. And I'm not making anyone wrong for feeling that way. Many of us are delicate. And if we're not delicate in all ways, we're certainly going to be delicate in certain ways. And it's going to be different for every individual, but it might be too painful emotionally to bear. And that's a problem. In other words, if I'm not willing to fall down and bruise my elbow and skin my knee, I'm probably not going to get to the stage that the skateboarder who made it look fun is at. That skateboarder who made it look fun traveled through the continuum of mastery. That individual picked up the skateboard, fell down, went boom, became extraordinarily frustrated, shifted that state of frustration to a state of fascination, got interested, started paying attention, looked at other people who were skateboarding successfully and effectively, asked questions, found out what they were doing, and then began the process of trial and error and implementing those strategies. Now, invariably, there's going to be setbacks. What I think we need to find is the excitement in that adventure. Like, I find it to be an adventure. I find it to be a very fascinating and fulfilling journey. Let's look at intermittent fasting as an example. Like, for me, that's a challenge, but it's a challenge that I embrace and I enjoy. And have I ever had a setback, or do I backslide? Have I made mistakes? Have I zigged when I should have zagged? There's no doubt about it. But that's what makes the accomplishment and the achievement. And when I'm on track, it makes it all the more valuable and all the more valued, because it is difficult and it is daunting. So again, if we use like the example of a child on a skateboard, if they're not willing to shift from frustration to fascination and then fight, which is this process of unbelievable adversity, like there's all sorts of forces far beyond just gravitational force of falling off the skateboard. There's all kinds of factors involved that are going to prevent the child from actually achieving a level of skill that is as attractive and as appealing as what drew them to the activity in the first place. But that's an adventure. Like that requires a stepping back and observing what it was like when we viewed it for the first time, and what somebody else who's at a stage that we were once at, we're now much further along, we're able to provide them with an example of what it's like to be at the stage we're at, which is far further along than where they currently are. That's why I believe what you do is getting a group of people together who have similar problems, but I think even more important than similar problems, they have similar aspirations. They want to hold themselves to higher standards. They're really committed to wellness. And I think because all of us are at different stages along our journey, we're able to provide each other with an example of what to do, and just as valuable, what not to do. You can let me know where the quicksand is because you have already traveled this path. And that's valuable. You can remind me by reminding yourself that you once faltered at this stage. You once made this mistake. And this is how you course correct. So the fascination stage, another way of saying that, is called getting an education. Your practice is unique, and that you're providing your patient with a lot more than just quick fix care. You definitely provide your patients with a wealth of information, with a wealth of knowledge, with a true metabolic education. So when they get smart, they have answers. And when you get smart and you have answers, you have strategies. When you get smart, you have answers and you have strategies. You also are armed with some of the inspiration to get through the tight spots, the difficult challenges, and to pick up where you left off. Like, one thing I love about intermittent fasting is if you have a bad day or a bad weekend or a bad week, you can start immediately over again. And I don't know if this is, you would have to tell me, Doc, if the numbers reflect this on a day to day, but it amazes me how quickly numbers fall back into line if you're fasting strictly. Can you speak to that for a moment?
And 100%. I mean, it'll clear out blood sugar very quickly. It'll clear out your triglycerides very quickly. Your insulin level will drop. They had a study just very recently published in JAMA, a very prominent medical journal, that 2 days of fasting was more effective than metformin, or a billion-dollar drug that makes you pee out sugar, at preventing diabetes and treating diabetes.
Yes.
2
So
days of fasting.
for me, that is so extraordinarily inspirational that we, without anything external, not by doing something, but actually by not doing something, we can regain and take charge and take command and ownership over our health. Like for me, that's just incredibly inspiring and empowering. You know, I love the value of that, and I love the challenge of that. I've slipped up. I've relapsed. You know, I've eaten food that I'd be embarrassed to admit to you. I have the utmost respect for you, and because I consider you not only my provider, but you're also my friend. I can't lie. I'm not going to lie to your face and tell you that I didn't eat the cake or I didn't eat the pizza or I didn't, you know, I didn't finish my last week. In fact, it was free Slurpee day at 7-Eleven, and I cannot believe it, but I found myself with my 4-year-old son's Slurpee straw in my mouth, like as if I was teaching him how to destroy his health. Like it was almost surreal, and I'm embarrassed, but I also know that it's not going to take me 5 years to undo that damage. In 48 hours, I can reverse the stupid mistake that I made. And I don't want to abuse that cycle of correction, but I am extraordinarily grateful and appreciative that it's available, and it's available at no cost. All I
Well,
have to do is not eat.
I think one of the things that you're highlighting here is just getting back to what you know is your vision of health. What you highlighted before fun, or what you highlighted in that fun category. So let's go over that again: fun, failure, frustration, fascination, fight, and fulfillment. So that person that you want to be in the fun, when you just buy that skateboard, when you see that person who lost weight, that when you see that, eighth degree black belt, and you're like, that's what I want to be, that's what I want to become. That fun moment, have that clear picture in your mind, right? Because you're gonna fail, right? You're gonna fail. You're
Absolutely.
gonna you're gonna be tempted by that Slurpee.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and I don't want to like impose that on other people who don't have that weakness. So I don't want to make it so like everybody thinks they have to slip up. You don't have to slip up. But if you do, you can get right back on track. And again, this comes back to reassociating yourself with who do you truly want to become? What's your identity? Not the fun you want to have, not the taste of sweet in your mouth, something superficial, but who do you really want to be? And then I like to include with the 6 F's and this mastery continuum, the idea of 6 human needs. And I'll share that real quick is we have we have uh, certainty and variety. We have fitting in and standing out. We have growth and contribution. So I'll repeat them again. We have certainty and variety. A lot of people look at those and say they contradict each other, but in fact, they complement each other. And then we have fitting in and standing out. Once again, they complement each other. We have growth and we have contribution. They complement each other. So let's look at those 6 needs through the lens of metabolic health. How do I certainty and variety is obvious, right? So my my menu, a lot of people look at it and they go, "It's not a lot of options on your menu." You know, it's for me, it's ribeyes, it's eggs, a little bit of broccoli, a little bit of vegetables, but mostly it's ribeyes and it's eggs. But I prepare my ribeye and my eggs a lot of different ways. Like I find variety within the certainty. If I hope that makes sense. In other words, I don't feel limited by the ingredients of the menu. There's a lot of ways for me to prepare those meals.
Spices, salt, right?
Sure.
But
Yeah,
don't forget the fish, shrimp, chicken, pork,
absolutely.
you know.
Right. That for me, that's almost like variety overwhelm. Like I err more on the side of certainty. But there's no question about it. When there's certainty, there's always variety. Let's shift to the tricky. The tricky one is the fitting in and the standing out. And I had an advantage with this because I had a head start in high school. In high school, I did not drink, I did not smoke, I did never zero, not a drop, not a puff. So how could I possibly fit in with my peer group when they were doing those things and I wasn't? I found it easy. I found that if fitting in with my peer group meant that I had to do those things, I didn't want to fit in with that group. But in fact, I did want to fit in with that group because there was more to that group than drinking and puffing. There's a lot more depth and a lot more value, a lot more dimension to my relationship with my peer groups that enabled me to fit in. Because the low-hanging fruit was drink and smoke cigarettes, but that wasn't a requirement for entry. That was a choice. In other words, you could fit in and not do those things. Now, why do I bring that up? Because I can fit in at a dinner party and not eat what's on the menu. I could either not eat at all. I could reduce the menu. I could choose to sit and be social. I do not need the lubricants of alcohol or cigarettes or or carbohydrates to make me feel like I fit in. There's other ways to do it. And of course, standing out then becomes extraordinarily easy. So we satiate the need, there's satiety, so to speak, of the needs of fitting in and standing out without having to compromise my values and my standards. Then we go to growth and contribution. The adventure for me in this journey of optimizing my metabolic health has been extraordinarily interesting. It just if I just limited my research or my understanding, my reading to your Instagram posts, it would keep me enchanted. But I have to tell you, like the journey of optimizing your metabolic health is a lot of things. Boring is not one of them. So the growth, what I gain from it, intellectually, physiologically, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, relationally, it's a whole wealth of gain, of growth through the process. And now I have this treasure chest. I have this like tremendous cave filled with gold. And I could either be the dragon who hoards the gold and hides it and keeps it for myself, or I could share that gold. And I like to share that gold. You allowing me to be on your platform today amongst extraordinarily accomplished individuals. I mean, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. You put me up on number 7, and it's a daunting task because I'm following incredibly accomplished individuals. But for you to give me an opportunity to make a contribution and give back what you've given me is not worthless. It's priceless. So again, if we're going through the struggle of trying to get our health back, we want to look at, does the process meet all 6 of the human needs? Is there certainty and variety? Do we fit in? Do we stand out? Do we have an opportunity to grow? Do we have an opportunity to contribute? And I could tell you without knowing you, I guarantee you the answer is yes. If you're willing to look carefully, if you're willing to turn over a few rocks, you will find that all 6 of those needs are being met. I absolutely guarantee it.
What do you say to that person? And I know you've seen them in your school, people you've trained, going back to your 6 F's, right? Fun, failure, frustration, fascination, fight, and fulfillment, right? That person who's stuck in the failure and the frustration, and they never make that leap, right? They never make that leap into the fascination, the fight, and
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They don't, it's always work, it's always hard. What do you say to that person? How do you help that student when you see them? How do you help that person when you see them? How do you tackle that person that you feel is stuck? And
Sometimes
this is a
it's
theme I've asked every one of the other speakers. So I'm going to
yeah,
ask you,
yeah.
what do
So
you think's needed to help that person?
so pop psychology, like psychology 101, like I don't have a formal education, but we know there's a carrot and a stick. We know there's pain and there's pleasure. And one usually resonates with an individual more than the other. It's kind of different for everyone. But I give you an example. It's like I want you to imagine, I want you to imagine that you're type 2 diabetic. And the guy looks at me and says, but I'm not type 2 diabetic. I know, but I'd like you to just imagine, close your eyes and imagine that you're type 2 diabetic. Imagine what that would be like. Imagine that you're not 20 pounds overweight, you're 150 pounds overweight. You're type 2 diabetic, you're having circulatory problems. Doctors talking to you about your fingers and your toes. I want you to project your consciousness. I want you to get into the DeLorean, the time machine. And I want you to really think about, on a deep emotional level, what that consequence would be like. And I want you to attach that to your reasons why. It's not that you should, but you must. It's not that you should do this, but you must. Now, that's fire and brimstone, and it's painful, it's difficult, it's daunting. And you might be thinking like, I'm really not qualified to make that statement. You might be right, but I've taken people through that journey. The other journey is, I want you to sit back, I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to imagine what it's going to be like when you lose 25 pounds that you don't want. Yeah, it's not 25 pounds that you need, it's 25 pounds that not only do you not need, but you don't want. And that 25 pounds is gone, and your body composition is more attractive to the person who is most important for it to be attractive to, which is you, which is you. It's not anyone else. It's not your spouse. It's you. Your body, it looks in a way that is pleasing to you. Your health is pleasing to you. Your report card, your scorecard, the back of your metabolic health baseball cards, your statistics look better than they've ever looked. What's your life going to be like then? When you have the energy, when you have the mobility, you've not only do you have all these things, but I don't want to overlook one of what I consider to be the most valuable parts of this is you now have a discipline. You now have this lifestyle. You have this practice. I consider fasting to be a practice. It's a discipline. It's a method. Like it's just as sacred to me as my practice of the martial arts or transcendental meditation. It's a way of life, and it gives texture and meaning and depth where not having any discipline in those areas, not only was it meaningless and empty, it was catastrophic, and it was unhealthy, and it was not only does it have a negative effect on me. One of the pain points I like to press is, you and you have 3 kids, I have 3 kids. Me, it's 2 girls and a boy. You, it's 2 boys and a girl. Now, I am quite certain, and I don't think you and I have ever discussed this, but I am quite certain that you've given deep consideration to what their lives would be like if you squander yours, and what their lives are like because you don't. So I like to use the idea of pain and pleasure to kind of leverage my behaviors. And I find that when people can truly embrace an understanding of what their future is going to look like if they do X, in contrast to what their future will look like if they continue to do Y, those things tend to instill change. They tend to get people to not require as much pressure from the outside, because they have something burning inside of them that's driving them to their goals. And I'm sure you see this with your patients. There's patients who, when you check in with them and they check in with you, it's obvious to you that they have a very powerful reason why. Does that make any sense?
Actually, every single one. Every single one. Out of 1,000+ patients, I have never met somebody who didn't want to lose weight, didn't want to. And out of the couple that really tested my faith, really, because I firmly believe everybody deep in their soul wants to get healthier, right? Out of the couple that tested my faith, their reason why was incredible life stress. Incredible life stress. Always life stress that I would find out later on. I would ask myself, I would like think about, am I missing something about this patient? Why can't I help them? What am I doing wrong? What can I do better? And what you just said was absolutely right. That reason why,
Yeah, I
there's
think
always a
that's,
reason why.
yeah, yeah. And if you have that reason, you can embrace that reason, and that reason might change. My suggestion to people is to upgrade their reason why.
Yeah.
Don't downgrade, never diminish it. Either keep it as it is or upgrade it, but never downgrade it, never diminish it. Keep that reason why as powerful as you possibly can. And another big thing I find is particularly with diet, with eating, with habits of it's incredible how quickly my mind will go to, gee, I'd like to have something to eat, when I don't recognize that I have a lot of other things to do that are a lot more beneficial and a lot more valuable.
Oh,
In
100%.
other words, grandma used to tell me that an idle mind is the devil's workshop. And what she didn't say is an idle mind keeps Nabisco in business. But I think it's true.
No,
You
no.
know,
Boredom is absolutely one of the biggest causes of, one of the biggest confusions for hunger, a hunger signal.
yeah, yeah. There's recreational outrage, there's recreational overeating, there's recreational all sorts of stuff. So another piece of advice is to find some things that have value, that have satiety. You use, like, I use as a metaphor, I think, is the idea of beef. Like beef is perfect, and it provides satiety. It's not meaningless, it's not empty, it's not worthless, and you don't want to eat it 24 hours a day, 7 days. It's not potato chips. In other words, it has value, it's effective, it gives my body what it actually needs. I enjoy it. I've not We talked about this, geez, it was maybe 2018, 2019. I was thinking I was going to get bored with it. I look forward to ribeyes. I look forward to eggs. I have not lost my appetite for those particular ingredients. So again, I try to I try to fill my desire to eat with what's going to be nourishing and beneficial and good for me. And then when I have those action signals and those impulses to eat, I have a whole plethora of other productive things that I can do. And I'd like to go back to the idea of growth and contribution. That's where often we want to be spending a lot of our time, i.e., when I feel like doing something self destructive, one thing that immediately snaps me out of that state of consciousness is to be productive, is to be of value to other people. The old adage of when you feel helpless, the way to snap yourself out of that is to become helpful. So when I'm engaging in self pity, and everybody, you know, by a show of hands, like, who's ever had a bad day? We all have. We've all had bad moments. But the thing that gets me out of the bad moments quickest is when I'm adding value to the lives of other people. So I think that a tremendous way to fill the emptiness that we often erroneously fill with the wrong food is to fill that space with adding value to the lives of other people. Share your knowledge with them. Share the story of your journey with them. And I'll wrap with one last idea. Um, in the martial arts, everybody has a black belt story, and their black belt story is long and it's exciting to them, but I dare say it's probably boring to most people. But every martial artist also has a white belt story, and their white belt story is short, it's brief, but it's exciting and it's action packed. And what it's reflective of is courage. Now, everybody who's started a journey of taking ownership and command of their metabolic health, they also have a story like that. People don't necessarily want to hear the long story of your metabolic health journey, but it's extraordinarily inspiring to come across somebody who's suffering and struggling and let them know how you got started. If you let them know how you get started, you let them know what day one is like. All they have to do is string along thousands of day ones, and they end up with having that hero's journey. But that day one story, the day that you decided you were going to put down the carbs, pick up the red meat, pick up the eggs, pick up the chicken and the fish, decide to not poison yourself, that's an extraordinarily inspirational story to somebody who has not yet done that. Share that with somebody. You can change their life. You'll become the person who set their feet firmly on that path. So I think that's a great way to fill the void. I know that gets me out of the rut when I'm stuck in it. Is, you know what I got to do? I got to get somebody else on the path. You know, misery loves company. And I say that tongue in cheek. You know, you get together with a group of people who are struggling with their metabolic health. And from the outside, people would say, oh, look at them. Misery loves company. But the fact of the matter is, mastery loves company even more. And I wish you the best of luck. And not only the best of luck, but I wish you a fulfilling challenge on your mastery journey.
Can I tell you, this has been so inspirational. It's been great. I love the success. I love, everything you talked about and that resiliency mind, you know, and what you said, believe it or not, you said it's not, you played down your credentials, although I think you should play them up. Everything you said was evidence-based. The fact that meat, fish, chicken, are satiating foods, the fact that fasting is a time-old principle. We talked about the study already. And exactly what you're talking about, finding that group and going with that group and sticking with that group has been shown. If you have one family member in your house that supports your lifestyle, you're 20 times more likely to succeed.
Blessed, blessed,
You know,
blessed. It's a blessing.
20 times. And if you have one family member against that lifestyle, you have severe handicap in succeeding. So, finding that peer group. And then the other thing that you said that really stuck with me, which was so important, was, giving back, being of service, being of value. We have to replace those happy hormones. You were getting happy hormones from Nabisco. You were getting happy hormones from Kellogg's and Kraft and General Mills. They're very happy to have you eat cereal for dinner and get you more profits. But when you remove those substances from your life, you're removing happy hormones. And so you're going to need fulfillment. One, just like you talked about, the acts of service, acts of value, being of service to your community and others, your family. And then you're going to need exercise. You're going to need to find a dojo. You're going to need to find a gym, a CrossFit gym, place to run, a trail. You're going to need happy hormones. So I thank you so much for joining us today
Thank you.
and
Thank you. We're
for imparting your wisdom.
and you know, I think it's fair to say, Doc, we're all on a very similar path. You know, we're all on a very similar path. I have no plans of getting off the path. I'm not interested in getting my metabolic health in order, getting a good report card, only to sabotage it. This is a lifestyle. And again, I find it to be an unbelievably extraordinary adventure. I like it. I love it. I want more of it. I hope you do too.
Thank you.
Thank you.